I want to go over just a few passages from this text, but one of my hopes is that all the pre-work we just done in terms of just talking about what the Romantic movement is, local color writing, what my hope is that you'll be able to put some of these pieces together. What about this text makes it romantic? What about this piece makes it a local color work? These are things I want you to be thinking about as you're reading, or as you're thinking about what you've read. So here's a passage here. So Cherokee Sal dies in childbirth, and so they have this child, right? And the men come in to see the child after he's been born. As the procession filed in, comments were audible. Criticisms addressed perhaps rather to Stumpy in the character of showman. Is that him? Mighty small specimen. Hasn't more'n got the color. Ain't bigger nor'n a derringer. Interesting kind of, again, local color connecting the size of the child with a gun. Not something you'd normally do. I just had a baby 8 months ago, and no one came in and said, hey, he's about half size of a rifle. No one said that. Again, local color, bringing in what the locals would think and the comparisons they would make. Again, very plausible connections, right? The contributions were as characteristics. The men brought gifts, right? A silver tobacco box, a doubloon, a navy revolver, silver mounted, a gold specimen, a very beautifully embroidered lady's handkerchief from Oakhurst the gambler, a diamond breastpin, a diamond ring suggested by the pin with the remark from the giver that he saw that pin and went 2 diamonds bigger. Talking about gambling, right? He saw that. I see your pin and I double this. The Bible, contributor, not detected. A golden spur, a silver teaspoon. The initials, I regret to say, were not the giver's, which means it was either stolen or won in a gambling a card game, right? A pair of surgeon's shears, a Bank of England note, and about $200 in loose gold and silver coin. During these proceedings, Stumpy maintained a silence as impassive as the dead on his left, a gravity as inscrutable as that of the newly born on his right. Only one incident occurred to break the monotony of the curious procession. As Kentuck bent over the candle box half curiously, the child turned, and in a spasm of pain caught at his groping finger, and held it fast for a moment. Kentuck looked foolish and embarrassed. Something like a blush tried to assert itself in his weather-beaten cheek. "The damn little cuss," he said, as he extricated his finger with perhaps more tenderness and care than he might have been deemed capable of showing. He held that little finger a little apart from its fellows as he went out and examined it curiously. The examination provoked the same original remark in regard to the child. In fact, he seemed to enjoy repeating it. "He wrastled with my finger," he remarked to Tipton, holding up the member. "The damn little cuss." So here, an interesting passage on a lot of levels that we have a procession, right? We have the Cherokee Sal who's deceased. We have the newly arrived child. And they process through as they would at a funeral or a birth, bringing gifts. The local color writing, again, is accentuated through the types of gifts that are being given. And these are symbolic in a lot of ways and communicative. Symbolic and communicative of the culture itself, the type of men that we have here. Next passage talks about how the child lived. So it says, "Strange to say, the child thrived. Perhaps the invigorating climate of the mountain camp was compensation for material deficiencies." Now, we've moved away from the local color strategies or techniques into a more romantic view, right, of nature. What is nature? Nature is a nurturing force. Nature will look out for a small child, right? And so we have that. Nature took the foundling to her broader breast. So there's no woman to breastfeed the child. But the child has nature. Nature took the foundling, took the child to her broader breast. In that rare atmosphere of the Sierra foothills, that air pungent with balsamic odor, the ethereal cordial, at once bracing and exhilarating. So the air itself, nature is helping this child grow. He may have found food and nourishment, or a subtle chemistry that transmuted ass's milk to lime and phosphorus. Stumpy inclined to the belief that it was the latter, and good nursing. "Me and that ass," he would say, "has been father and mother to him." Okay, so now we have the influence of Romanticism comes into the text here, and we've had that really throughout, but here is a key moment of Romanticism, a key picture of Romanticism at work in the text. So you have nature that is taking the child to its broader bosom. We have a picture of natural air that would allow this child to grow and develop properly, even without his mother. But that's not where the story ends, because the complexity continues here with a little more realism. Here, Bret Harte brings in some realism, and we might even call this naturalism. Naturalism we'll talk about a little later in the class here, another lecture, but a brief snippet of naturalism. Naturalism is a movement inside of realism that says, the Romantics call nature a nurturing force, but according to the naturalists, we see nature as a brutal, impersonal force, not one that would nurture a child, but that one that would be brutal to a child, I suppose, or brutal to anyone. There is no mother nature. There's only nature and the brutal forces of nature that destroy and that we must fight against as people that live within this place of nature. Final passage I want to read here it says, "The winter of 1851 will long be remembered in the foothills. The snow lay deep on the Sierras, and every mountain creek became a river, and every river a lake. Each gorge and gulch was transformed into a tumultuous watercourse that descended the hillsides, tearing down giant trees and scattering its drift and debris along the plain. Red Dog had been twice under water," that's another town, "and Roaring Camp had been forewarned." Okay, so nature. Now all of a sudden we've had local color, we've had Romanticism, and now we're kind of moving into realism and naturalism. We have a storm and a flood. Well, it says here, "Water put the gold into them gulches," said Stumpy. "It's been here once and will be here again." And that night, the North Fork suddenly leaped over its banks and swept up the triangular valley of Roaring Camp. Now, as you know, the story ends with some tragic occurrences. I'll leave that to you to finish. But in what way do we see the conflict between Romanticism and realism, Romanticism and naturalism? A kind nature, and yet at the same time a brutal nature. Where do we see in this text pictures of local color writing, or the strategy of local color writing? I think it's a great piece on a lot of levels, a lot of complexity, and a lot to offer us for discussion. I think another key thing is what is the picture of life? What is the view of truth that is presented in this text? That's something we're going to keep coming back to. What is truth? How do we know things? And so what is presented in this text? How do we know what is true? What does the text say about the way we gain knowledge and truth? See you next time.